Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. The argument I'd like to advance over the next 45 minutes is that aligning college and career pathways provides clear value. What I mean by college and career pathways is that from the moment a student begins at your institution, whether that's dual enrollment or first time, full time, or transfer, to the moment in which they graduate and enter into the labor force, that there is a single linked college career pathway. And then in higher education, we need to not only continue to think about graduating students faster, which we absolutely do, but we also need to start thinking about where our students are going to get jobs and how we can help facilitate that. And the other thing I want you to remember is value. If you remember one word, let it be value. And by value, I don't mean like cheap or discount or bargain basement kind of stuff. I mean the old-fashioned use of the word value, which is something that's esteemed, that has merit, that has worth. The rest of America, according to Gallup, they surveyed a whole bunch, about 300,000 adults over the age of 18 to 65, and they basically, and Pew Research as well, Pew found that 65% or 61% of adults believe that higher education is going in the wrong direction. Well, why align college and career pathways? Another reason is that that's what our students want us to do. So for 40 years at the University of California, Los Angeles, they've been doing a survey called the Freshman Survey. Many of your institutions participate in this survey. And it probably will not surprise you, particularly if you work at a two-year institution, the idea that most of your students come through your doors because they expect their skills and education they receive will lead to a better career down the future. 64% of hiring employees believe that an academic degree is not very important when deciding to hire a candidate. What they believe is the primary thing that they're interested in is, does the applicant have the skills they need? If employees lost their job, 49% would look to employers for the education that they needed. Policymakers are increasingly looking and focusing on post-secondary outcomes. What do I mean by that? Well, over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of foundations and a lot of policymakers that have been very interested in attainment goals. And all the purple on that slide, 41 states have passed attainment goals, which is that the institutions of higher education have to demonstrate some value in post-secondary outcomes. What that usually means is graduation rates, time to completion, those kinds of things. So they're trying to hold institutions of higher education accountable. Well, just last year, 17 states and the District of Columbia actually passed workforce development policies. 95% of chief academic officers rate their institution as very or somewhat effective at preparing their students for work. 34%. They also surveyed business leaders who were responsible for hiring. Anybody want to guess what they thought? 11%. 11%. If you're a guided pathways institution or you work on that, we can actually help fulfill some of the promise of the guided pathways movement. Guided pathways can help students stay on plan and really support them to help them stay on plan. If we were to switch roles for a second, here's how I would kind of think through the process. First, am I building pathways to help retain and graduate students faster? Second, am I offering the right number of courses? Third, am I aligning transfer pathways? And then finally, am I aligning course offerings with career opportunities? And I don't just mean your first job, but are you on a trajectory to move forward in a student's career? So let's start at the beginning. Well, what do we know about retention? 10 years ago, we were at 59%, and 2017, we're at 61%. One thing that helps retain students is actually just getting a better student. So if you have prior achievement, so the students who actually do well on the math on the SAT, that kind of prior achievement accounts for a lift of about 0.5% on average on that retention metric. If you look at the courses when they're offered, when students are most likely to be there, that metric's called the prime ratio, that improves retention. There are courses that are underutilized, that's 70% or lower fill rates. So as you increase the number of courses that are underutilized, you decrease your retention rate, hence the negative number. Momentum, if you have students that are taking 12 and 15, as they increase the amount of credit hours they're taking, they're more likely to be retained. In terms of the momentum stuff, we actually built an entire solution Are students hitting their English gateway when they need them? Are students hitting their math gateway? Are they taking 9 credits within their major? Are they taking 30 credits over their first year? So you can actually see the progress that students are making at the institutional level and then at the program level to measure the momentum. You can also tee up insights in real time where you can actually say, okay, so how are we doing with this particular student? Are we on track? Is she on track? If not, what can we do to actually improve the process? We also have degree velocity. The thing that I always look at is what is this institution's rate on their time to degree? Okay, so it's 5 years, a little over 5 years for a 4-year degree. Well, why might that be? Well, the students on average are not taking 30 credits per year, they're taking 24 credits per year. Then you can see the ratio of how many credits are productive, about 22, and that might in part explain why it takes at this institution on average 129 credits to graduate. How many credits on average are they completing in a pathway, and what's the time? So on this is a bubble plot. The bigger the bubble, the more students that are in that pathway. So you can see with biology, it's like the moon slightly eclipsing psychology, the sun. A lot of students in that pathway, about 5 years, a little over to graduate on time, and they're racking up roughly 130 credits to graduate on time. Or to graduate. Then in Gen Ed, there's actually some insights that we can tee up at that level. So English, almost every program requires it. At this institution, it's a 99% enrollment rate. That's quite high. And I'm sure probably at this institution, the English department chair, if she or he were smart, would be advocating for more faculty. Well, why is that a problem? Well, if students are only getting English on time at 49% in the first semester, when they take English 1102, which they also need in most plans, then they're already off a semester. So right off the gate, there's about half the students that are starting off. Upper division impact. So thinking about some of those like management and business administration courses, there's a course here, it's got a 59% enrollment, you can see in the gray box. It's down, like this is a great opportunity to actually tee up and say, we should probably offer more of this because there's a lot of students that need that class and it's really in demand. In terms of aligning the transfer pathways, so building out 2-year pathways with the in-mind idea of 4-year pathways is a great opportunity to show economic value to your students that you can actually guarantee that most of your students will get the courses they need, not only at this institution, but at a future institution. Am I lagging my understanding of college and career pathway demand? Am I aligning course offerings with in-demand skills? Am I refining? So aligning, refining, and I'm going with designing next. Yes, I am. Designing educational opportunities that advance pathways. When you look at the labor market, from 2011 to 2019, there was a 9% drop in the number of teachers that were actually being minted in the state. So then when you actually look at the labor market and where the labor market's projected to be from 2018 to 2023, you can see a whole lot of red on that figure. The only one that actually is growth, where there's some growth, is about $13 an hour. So those people who are in that growth field are going to be earning $20,000 less than everyone else. The answer is yes, students actually did figure it out. When we put this together, we saw a decline in education job growth, enrollment down 28%, underutilized courses up 35%, and the labor market down 1 to 2% in the future, projection. The person who is in charge of this program, Jennifer, she said, I have a PhD from Georgia Tech. I know what they teach at Georgia Tech. And I know the same stuff that I teach is what I'm teaching my students, so I know that they know what you learn at Georgia Tech. I can't get people to hire like at at Delta or Coca-Cola because they see the program of where my institution is and it doesn't say Georgia Tech or Emory. So she partnered with R, a statistical programming company, and SAS to offer a joint certificate. So somebody who says, oh, I'm looking to hire for R, I'm looking to hire for SAS, lo and behold, they have that same skill. We'll point you to this program. So she actually, by doing that, we were able to look in the labor market and we were able to see that there's tremendous opportunities for her students. For every position you have, you post it 4 different places. So that's a posting of an intensity of 4 to 1. When you actually go through the program and you're seeing they're hiring at 17 to 1, so 4 times the posting, the average position usually closes in 30 to 45 days. This is taking roughly 70-some days to actually close the position. So Gallup then asked them 6 questions about, do you have a mentor? Do you have a job or internship that aligned with your classroom learning? Did you work on a project longer than a semester? Those kinds of things. What they found was if you had 6 of those experiences, 76% of students felt that they were prepared for the labor market. When you actually, but unfortunately, only 2% of the students that they surveyed felt that they had all 6 of those experiences. Most of the time, which is 48%, they had 1 or fewer of those experiences. What do employers want? They want 3 things. They want specific, substantive, and social skills. So the specific skills are, if you're hired as a data scientist, or you're hired as a nurse, or you're hired as somebody that's a chemist, that you actually have some understanding of chemistry. If you're hired as a chemist and you have those specific skills, you should have substantive skills. So if you need to be familiar with pharmaceuticals if you're being hired as a chemist in a pharmaceutical field. You also need to have social skills. So hopefully you can figure out how to work a PowerPoint projector and do better than I did. But that's the number 1 skill that employers are looking for, the social skills. There's a big gender gap in STEM fields. And if we were to look in the local market in Cleveland, we would see that the population does not match where these in-demand jobs are. If we also look at the breakdown, we'll see that in Cleveland, Ohio, 73% are white, only 2% are Latino. If we actually look at the community, about 11% are Latino and 50% are black. So there's a big gap. And people at the Cleveland Clinic and other places, employers all over the country, are so hungry for getting the help. They need that help to have that pipeline that's as wide and as diverse as possible to actually help students. And we can play the part in real time. I'm not aware of anywhere else that you can actually go where you can align the pathway of where students are now and where they're projected to be on their terms of graduation, and where you can tee up labor market insights. I'm not aware of anybody else that can actually do it but us. 3 things to take away in terms of aligning the college career pathways to make an argument that actually adds value to address the demand. 1 is we can address the demand. You don't want to be like that education department that isn't sure whether or not there is enough demand for their courses. We can help you integrate projects like we were talking about, developing, refining those skills. We can also help you with emphasizing the idea that skills and degrees. So the final point I'm going to leave you with is whether you're starting big, like Bill Fagey, who's going to join us on this panel very shortly, on a whole pathway initiative through an entire system, or you're starting small with just 1 biology department, the most important thing you can do is just start. Thank you.